Yes. Welcome to the February 1st, 2024 HOF Housing Opportunity Advisory Board meeting. Welcome to all our in-person and online guests. We are going to start with the roll call. Lena Andrews. Dr. Jamil Bey. Tammy Thompson. Karen Garrett.
I'm here.
Councilwoman Deb Gross. Mark Masterson. Deidre Washington. Marcus Reed. Dr. Paul Spradley.
Here.
Alan Cisco.
I'm here. Hi, guys.
Derek Tillman.
I'm here.
James Reed.
Here.
Adrian Wanaha, chair, is present. Kelly Ware. So we do have a small group today, but we do have a quorum. Now that we've called roll call, I would like to introduce Eric. Eric is our newest member of the URA team. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Right, my name is Eric Bernheimer. I'm the new Housing Administrative and Outreach Coordinator. I'm a fresh PIG graduate, and I'm very glad to be here. So thank you.
We're excited to have you. What I didn't realize is Eric was working with the URA staff for the last 6 months. So he's a great addition to the team, and we're excited to have him. At this time, we would open up to public comments. We are not hearing any public comment at this time, but a change we'd like to discuss in this meeting and start as of today is also at the end of our meetings, taking a moment to engage our members, visitors and guests to the meeting and see if there are any questions, concerns, or comments that are salient from the day's discussion. So we will do that today. If folks are not available at this moment for public comment, we will have that time later. So we are going to start with some URA administrative updates.
For the OWN PGH construction financing update, I believe Ben will be presenting that. Or Kiana.
Sounds good. We'll come up here just so we can.
We're going to be moving around the table so that folks can hear us with the sound system. So you will see folks moving from the back end further into the front so that everybody can hear the conversation.
Good afternoon. I'm Kiana Wasser, Chief Housing Officer at the URA. And we have two administrative announcements today. The first is that back in November of 2023, the URA's Board of Directors approved using our own PGH program, which is one of our home ownership programs, as a construction financing tool for nonprofit developers to be able to use those funds to help renovate homes that will be sold to affordable buyers at 80% AMI or below. So we just wanted to make the announcement that process and application is open now through March 15th. More information is available on the URA's website. If you go to the website, ura.org, and search for OWN PGH construction financing, you will find the program information as well as the application there. And then our second announcement, just wanted to make sure that we made the announcement to the HOF Advisory Board that the affordable housing bond process has been finalized. We closed on that financing, and we have approximately $30 million in the bond fund available to use towards the efforts of creating and preserving affordable housing. Those funds will be used in the for sale development program, the rental gap program, the downtown conversion program, as well as the Housing Preservation Program. And more information to come on the bond. We do owe, the URA owes a report to City Council, which will be a public report by the end of March, and we can share that with the HOF committee as well. So just wanted to make sure, because we didn't have a public meeting in January, that we did announce that the bond financing is completed and closed.
Kiana, thank you. I'm actually gonna tool us back for a quick second. Our public comment person has actually arrived here in person, which we're super excited about. So if we could just take that little bit of time to go back and have our public comment, that would be fantastic.
You want to come in?
Come on up, Megan.
I apologize, everyone. I forgot where I was in the city and what travel time takes after the remote life. Well, good afternoon, and it's lovely to see so many of you here in person, and thanks for letting me do public comment a little late. My name's Megan Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. And what I want to touch on today, as you all embark on 2024 with the Housing Opportunity Fund, is just a reminder. You've heard it before, but so you know that the DEI committee is invested, committed, and working on applying a DEI lens to all of the HOS programming and to the URA's housing activities that occurs outside of the HOF, particularly as we were just discussing the housing bond. So for example, some of the analysis that we know that within the affordable housing units that are funded by the Rental Gap Fund and other funding, what we're all knowing for what's becoming a well-known fact in Pittsburgh is that family-sized units are desperately needed. Additionally, as we continue to build townhouses, that we're taking steps to ensure that the townhouses are adaptable to be available for residents with disabilities. And so in the coming months, as the DEI committee proposes a lens and an application to various HOF programming to be brought before you, I just ask your understanding and analysis of looking at what it is that we're trying to accomplish with the activities and the programming and understanding equality and equity at the same time. Also, one more point to touch on is for 2024, the HOF allocated about $350,000 to the demonstration fund. And that's to be responsive to the needs of the existing programs and the city's affordable housing needs. But what I ask you to do now is to start considering a discussion on the potential uses of these funds to ensure that it's allocated proactively and not retroactively or in a sudden need to spend it down because of the timeline, particularly with the affordable housing bond online in the city. So for example, what outcomes within the existing programs of the HOF does the board need in order to determine whether to allocate additional funds to that existing program? Or what potential new projects, even as simply ideas, are a priority for the board? So I simply want to commend all the work that you've done and to state, especially as we have the bond online, is that we don't want to inject steroids into the status quo of affordable housing. We want to provide a real opportunity for innovation and responsive efforts to put into the city's affordable housing needs. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Megan, you're more than welcome to stay here or go back to where you were sitting. It's totally your comfort.
I'll feel like an honorary member for a minute.
Well, we have so much movement today. It feels silly to, have our partners and colleagues have to move around the room. Please stay with us. And we're going to move on to some exciting conversation that I know we've all been waiting for. I know Karen's with us today and has been a great advocate for this particular set of programming. Derek's with us today, also has some fantastic insight. So we want to take some time together and really talk about the Small Landlord Fund.
And I believe Kyle is online and will be able to present this.
I saw Kyle.
Yep.
Afternoon, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Hi, Kyle.
Yes.
Hey guys. Obviously my name's Kyle Novak. I'm one of the Housing Opportunity Fund program coordinators, and I work under the residential and consumer lending team. And I manage the homeowners assistance program and also why we're all here today, the Small Landlord Fund program. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Small Landlord Fund program for those of you who aren't familiar with it. The Small Landlord Fund is designed to provide funding to landlords with 10 or fewer units within the city of Pittsburgh limits to make existing affordable rental housing. The borrower must rent the repaired unit to HCV holders or households at 80% AMI or below, with funding terms up to anywhere from $20,000 per unit or up to $100,000 per project. Currently, there's a 0% interest rate on the loan. The loan terms are based on the amount of money being borrowed. Anything under $50,000 is a 10-year loan term. Anything over $50,000 but not exceeding the $100,000 is a 15-year loan term. These loan terms are used for payment purposes, and the length of time the landlord must rent the units to HCV holders or households at 80% AMI or below. Currently, I started with the URA about a year ago, and I took over this program. The program was launched in early 2021, and since I've started to manage this program, I've had completed now 6 closings, and currently there are 10 completed Small Landlord Fund project closings total. In 2023, I had 16 applications submitted. 4 of those 16 have closed. 1 loan for $19,670.32. Another loan for $99,600, and 1 for $59,918. And the 4th was $98,723.24. So far, 3 loans were rejected. 1 was due to the property not being within the city limits. 1 was the tenant was related to the owner, and tenants cannot be related to the owner. The other was the property was not properly zoned as a single or multifamily dwelling. However, I'm still in contact with that individual. They are working on getting that property rezoned, so hopefully I can help them and they can successfully go through this program. I am currently working on 12 possible projects with the Small Landlord Fund. I'm waiting for these individuals to send me all the materials I need to review and accept them to the program. One of these projects is a combined multi-use building, which I'm working with another department in the URA on the commercial side to go along with the residential side of this project. In 2023, there was a total payout of $75,299.67 for this program. So far this year in 2024, it's only been a month. Nothing has been paid out yet. Left to be paid out for active small landlord loans is $339,879.56. Individuals do not get paid out until the work has been completed and inspected by one of our URA quality and control inspectors, and it passes all inspections. As well as there are no monthly payments until there has been an invoice. For example, if a project closed for $75,000, which included roof replacement and bathroom repairs, the roof work was completed first and passed inspection and was invoiced for $35,000. At 1 month from payment of that individual's monthly payment will start, and it will be based off of that $35,000 invoice. The individual's loan term is 15 years, 180 months, since they took out over $50,000. Their monthly payment will be around $194 a month. And as they start to work towards the bathroom repairs, once that is completed and passes inspection, we'll invoice for the remaining $40,000. Once that project has been fully paid out, their monthly loan amount will increase, and it would be around $416.67 until the balance of the loan is paid in full. That is how you can see the breakdown on the screen for the total money that has been paid out to date versus the total money left to still be paid out with active small landlord loans. There is approximately $61,968 left from small landlord loans that were not closed on in 2023 calendar year to be paid out still, as these individuals are still working on the repairs and haven't finished yet. Some changes that were made in 2023, the Small Landlord Fund used to have a 3% interest rate on the loan. That has since changed, and now we offer a 0% interest rate. The guidelines have been updated with some more detail and have been made easily accessible for consumers to access them. They're now posted on our website under the Small Landlord Fund program. And some outreach efforts. This project has been attended at community meetings, city events, and tabling events. This has occurred through various neighborhoods throughout the city of Pittsburgh. During these events, the program is explained to city residents along with flyers and information packets for those who are asking about this program. I have also personally reached out to the city of Pittsburgh's permits, licenses, and inspections, as I know that they are still in the process of trying to get the rental registration to be passed. I'm hoping to work collaboratively with them to find more applicants whose properties may be in code violations and that need repairs to their rental units. As far as for feedback with this program, a lot of landlords that I've interacted with said that they have trust issues with doing programs like this. They feel it's too good to be true. They've been hurt in the past by other programs. Some of them say they do not like that they have to follow rules when it comes to dealing with their own property and who they have to rent their units to. They don't like the loan terms for renting 80% or below AMI. They feel that those loan terms are too long. And a lot of them are looking for more grants instead of a loan. And they also do not like that they cannot be paid for the loan until the work has passed inspection and has been completed. Some positive things, though, this has helped a lot of landlords that really need to get their properties up to code. Otherwise, they may not have been able to fix the properties without going through this program. And some suggested new changes in hopes to get this program more involved with the community and landlords. Instead of having a loan that is paid back by landlords, we are proposing that a deferred loan for this program. It will mirror how the HAP deferred loan runs, if you're familiar with our HAP program. This deferred loan will allow landlords to obtain money to make repairs to their units, and as long as they abide by the loan terms, 10 or 15 years, to rent to HCV or households with 80% or below AMI, the loan will be fully forgiven and no payments required. We believe that this will make the program more popular and help those small landlords make the necessary repairs and keep their properties safe and healthy for renters. And some future goals is I'm hoping you guys will pass that and get for the deferred loan. And I'd like to see this program more utilized and hoping to get more applications and complete some successful closings. I'll open it up to any questions. Thank you.
Kyle, can I ask a quick question just about the types of repairs folks are doing? Because I know that I heard you say things like, meeting code. What seems to be the most popular or the most dire need that landlords are looking for?
So I will say in the last 3 closings I did, it's a complete, what's the word I'm looking, redo. Like everything, currently the building is down to the studs. So they are completely redoing everything. Other than that, I've seen like bathroom renovations, kitchen remodels, and roof repair work.
Yeah. To add to that, Adrian, this is Derek Kendall Morris with the URA. I think what we've seen, historically through the program since we've started it, mirrors what we see in the homeowner assistance program, where a lot of these properties are very old. They need new electrical work. They need roof replacements. That it's the same housing stock really that we're dealing with. So we see the same issues on the landlord side and the homeowner side.
Derek, I know you had a question.
Yes, I'm glad to hear about the conversion to a grant, essentially that'll be forgiven after a period. That's bar none the most important component to this program. But what was the term of when that forgiveness will happen? And does it change based on loan amount? Like if it's 50K, 30K versus 100K?
So yes, depending on how much money they're borrowing depends on their loan terms. So anything that's under $50,000 would be a 10-year loan term. And then anything over that 50,000 would be a 15-year loan term.
And it's forgiven when?
So currently it is not forgiven. If you guys were to vote that in, it would be forgiven either after the 10 years or the 15 years. Right now, once they invoice, they have monthly payments with 0 interest back.
Right. Two quick other questions. So I know the other issue is, and you mentioned this, loans can't be paid out until after work is completed. And I understand that, we don't want people running off with money without completing the work. But I would just suggest a modification that at least the materials can be purchased. Because that's often the issue is the contractor or the homeowner, the landlord has to purchase all those materials. It's one thing if, at least have the materials on site and tell the contractor you can't get paid until the work is completed, but to have to pay them and buy the materials. So I would just, I think there's minimal risk with that. So that would be one suggestion. And then question around the DEI lens, as Megan just talked about, we're really focused on seeing that embedded throughout all these programs, whether it's working with tenants, homeowners, contractors, developers, et cetera. But really seeing that embedded, that, more minority landlords, as it relates to this program, are a part of it. So what are we doing to ensure that happens? And then the other question I asked prior about the materials being able to be a consideration.
I mean, I think we'd have to talk about that internally, and we'd have to see. I know right now we require that I require a scope of work to be presented, and based off that scope of work is determine their loan amount. So we'd have to have a PA licensed contractor that would be doing the work to renovate these units and apartments.
Yeah, to add to that, Derek, I think that's a very reasonable suggestion, and I think, a sensible suggestion. And that's something we can explore. Yeah. But I know, we modeled this program off of how, all of our sort of repair style programs work. And that's in partnership with, our engineering and quality control department within the URA. And, some of those requirements around not paying up front and, and all of those things, come out of, requirements that our quality control department requires for anything that the URA does. So it's certainly something we can explore, but we do have certain constraints that we have to work around just within the URA infrastructure. But I hear you. I think that is something that, may be helpful. So we'll explore that.
Yeah, and the issues are interconnected. The low number of contractors, whether we're talking about HAP or this program, if we want to encourage DEI and have more, minority and smaller contractors participate, this is going to be a barrier of entry. So we have to think about how these issues are interconnected to being part of the solution. So we may not resolve it today, but we need to. So just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question to what Derek was just saying. And I'm not suggesting that the board needs to do this, but if the HOF, for example, wanted to use demonstration dollars to create a pool of funds for landlords to draw down materials costs that then gets repaid, would that still be blocked by the URA process? Or could we do something like that and then partner the two pieces together?
I think that's something we'd have to explore. Yeah, that's an innovative idea that, to my knowledge, hasn't been tried. So yeah, I think we'd be open to talking more about what that could look like, if that's something the advisory board would be interested in doing. Yeah, that's my answer to that question. I would say is not sure, but we could explore it.
I was gonna say, like, Derek Kendall Morris, I remember when I was doing HOF projects with RTP, I think we had like 10% of the money up front for the, like as an administrator. And I know it would be a different situation, like directly with customers or loanees or whatever, but that 10% was the sort of startup flexible money that got projects moving, you know, in a renovation. And I think that's true no matter what kind of project you're doing. So, you know, there's like that precedent in the existing renovation sort of model for there to be some amount of allowance upfront.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alan. I agree. Like I definitely hear.
I know you agree. I know you
Yeah.
agree. I'm giving you talking points, buddy.
Yeah, I think we should explore that.
Others that would like to make comments, ask questions, suggestions related to small landlord.
Yes. Hi, everybody. This is Karen Garrett from the Housing Authority City of Pittsburgh. Partially, my concern was the underutilization of this fund when we were voting on this as a area that might needed some tweaking of some sort. And I am pleased to hear that there's this forgiveness portion that you're proposing today. That certainly was not something that I had heard before. However, what I've been made aware of is that our inspections here, which mirror many of the inspections that you're recalling, all of the landlords, first of all, in 2023, over 600 units had a final fail. And final fail kind of denotes that there's over 600 units that are no longer available for people in the community to be able to, have affordable housing. And that was quite alarming for me to hear that. But in addition to that, all of the units that were under final fail received notification to apply to the URA Small Landlord Fund. And many of them have not, as indicated by the low applications that we're seeing here. And so, I certainly want to hear more of your explorations into some of the ideals that have been brought to bear today. But certainly, when I worked with the Department of Human Services with a small landlord fund, it was certainly a grant in nature, and it provided more units back online because, the crisis that we're in is not just citywide, it is nationwide in terms of affordable housing for individuals that are low income. And some of the repairs that we came up against were like sidewalks, electrical repairs, heating and plumbing, replacement of windows, even drywall, even pest control issues that were occurring in many of the units. So again, I'd just like to hear more about the exploration in terms of and maybe you might want to explain to me again about the loan process and the forgiveness. Are they expected to pay up to the 10 years and then after that be forgiven? Or I guess I wasn't clear on what that forgiveness looked like.
So currently, if someone takes out, I do a closing with them for, say, $50,000. They are expected, that would be a 10-year loan term. They are expected to pay that loan term back once the first invoice happens. Every month, they'll make monthly payments. They can, if their monthly payments are $200 and they pay it off before the 10 years, that's fine. They still have to rent that unit out for 10 years to 80% below AMI or the HCV. If it's passed, we then, after the 10 years, if it's passed, there'll be no monthly payments from the landlords. And then after 10 or 15 years, depending on the amount that was taken from the loan, that loan would be fully forgiven. Does that help answer your question, Karen?
Yes, yes.
Karen, this is Derek again with the URA. I thank you for bringing up the final fails, and I think like those 600 landlords, from my perspective, would be exactly the landlords that we want to connect with. And I think, to speak to the outreach efforts that we've been doing, we've been out, in the community, going to community events, trying to reach those, landlords that are in situations like that. So I'd love to connect with you offline to see, is there a way that, HECP could provide us with a list of those landlords so that we could proactively reach out to them?
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention also is when we're meeting on Thursdays, the first Thursdays, they also have a landlord engagement meeting that happens downtown. So subsequently, I was sharing with them about this initiative, and they were very open to have maybe a presentation or you could, have a conversation with, because about 15 to 20 landlords do show up for this meeting that happens. So certainly I'd be more than willing to facilitate that.
Please, if you could, we would love to present to that group and try to, I think, explain more about how the program works and see if we can get some more interest in that. Because those are exactly the type of landlords that we're trying to reach. And I think it's, the numbers that Kyle has presented, we have had some challenges, I think, getting in front of those landlords. So that would be wonderful.
And how could we also, as the HOF advisory, I mean, realistically, many of us are representing a specific area of the city. Others of us are representing different industries. How could we also take a list like that and assist the URA in also making those inroads? Because the URA, according to Kyle, may not be the person that landlord wants to hear from.
Yes.
But they might want to hear from Derek, or they might want to hear from Megan. Even though she's not a board member, as an advocate and someone that landlords may have interfaced with in an incredibly positive way, we may be able to, not just with our HOF members, but also with our committees, assist in some of that, relationship building.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think, in 2024, I know it's Kyle's goal and mine as well, I think, to be more proactive in those ways, because just sort of being out there in the community hasn't generated, I think, the interest, because I think, for a small landlord, we come as the URA, and there's a certain taste in your mouth, and I understand that. So I think we do have to come up with some more creative ways to connect with them. So we're open to any and all opportunities like that. We're ready to get out there and connect with those landlords. We want this to be successful. So,
and just to add to that, we can certainly help in those ways, but truth be told, I couldn't sell this or take this to folks that I know, because it wouldn't be well received, just from, my previous work in that space, and then even talking to landlords. But with the modifications we're looking to vote on today, now this is sellable. So we're, within due time, I think the floodgates will open. Going back to the innovative idea, which I think even Megan touched on, that we really need to, and was brought about of utilizing the demonstration dollars. What does anyone know the process to bring that as a consideration?
It would just be a motion, honestly. Any member of the advisory could bring a concept to the table, or an outside partner could bring that concept to the table. We would have discussion like we are now. I'm actually feeling like, from the discussion today, I'm feeling like the advisory would like to make one change right away if we could, which is that change from having to be a loan to potentially being a forgivable loan, which would sort of equate to a grant. I feel like the temperature I'm hearing is that the group would really like to do that, quickly. For some of these other pieces, we really could, we really just need to bring to the group, because of an outside party sharing their expertise with us, or an inside member bringing that expertise, to say, we think that this would be a great way to use the demonstration dollars. Once that motion's on the table, we'll follow our traditional process.
So can I ask, oh, sorry, one more real quick question. I'm sure this is administrative in nature. As it's currently set up, when people are paying back the loans, what happens to that money? Does it go back into the small landlord fund for future loan outs?
Thank you for the question, Alan. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yes, that it would go back into, HOF account that could be used for other SLF loans. Yeah.
So, like, the context in which we will be making this change is that we would be making the program more attractive today, which is necessary, it seems like, just from the facts on the ground. But we would also be, in some ways, robbing future opportunities to loan out additional funds.
Yes, and in that loan term, I think what has happened in the past with these loans, and I could be wrong about this because I don't work at the URA, it felt that at loan completion was really when those dollars sort of became available.
Come back. Yeah.
Which would be for these loans, if folks are utilizing the 10-year term, which I would assume they would, because why would they pay it back early if it's no interest? We would be looking at that happening relatively far out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
But the reality, Alan, is I highly doubt that the loans will get paid back. And the reason why is this. If you compare this program to like LIHTC, for example, developers get money and that money does not have to be paid back to produce, to produce high level units, which is what we're talking about producing here. If we're going to produce high level units, we really need subsidy like this to make it happen. The rents aren't high enough. Just say the average rent is $800. Well, if your repayment is $450, that doesn't include taxes and insurance. That's another $250. So that's $700. So your cash flow is $100. You're asking me to make cash flow of $100 for 15 years? No, I'll flip it to market before I do that. So the reality is, without this subsidy, we're going to continue to get low participation. And for those that do participate, the likelihood of being repaid is probably not going to happen anyway. So we need to structure it in a way that actually helps our community.
So just a couple of things that I wanted to jump in with, so in terms of, and Derek, just because you brought this up, repayments, that's something that, conceivably is a knowable sort of thing that we could ask URA staff to look into and give some form of reporting. I think, the changes that are being proposed here with the deferred loan structure and the forgiveness at the end of the term, those are seismic changes in my estimation and should do a lot to make the program more attractive. In terms of the trade-off with, we wouldn't have dollars to be recycled. I think there is some question again, what percentage of dollars would we be receiving over the course of repayments anyways? And with the 10-year, with a 10-year term, if folks are going to pay at the end of that, we're talking about how much of that as compared to the percentage of the annual allocation that this program is going to continue to receive. So, I think to me, it's kind of a question of what percentage would we actually be losing out of, what dollar amount. And I don't think we would be, losing out on 100% of repayments, because I think you would have some folks for whatever reasons would be unable to make, that repayment at the end of 10. So I'm personally not too concerned about, not having dollars to recycle, though, just from a basics of, programming, I do like to see some small amount of dollars coming back in. I just think that's an especially useful thing to be able to show in a world where funding is tight and dollars already have to be stretched for so many different uses. But all of that said, I think the chief thing I wanted to say was I recognize how significant the changes that we're being asked to make are. And I hope that does quite a bit to make the program more attractive in the practical sense. And then I think from a marketing sort of standpoint, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with, you know, trusted members of different communities, you know, exploring different avenues for how people are receiving information. And then ultimately, you know, if we get to a point where we have landlords who have gone through and the process and they're successfully renting out, right? Like those are the people that you want to share their stories about. So, you know, I think there's a lot of interesting and potentially low-hanging fruit that can be done on the marketing side. And I'm always happy to kind of chat through those ideas more. But chief among them, I think, is once we have a good group of folks who have gone through it, on the landlord side and also potentially on the tenant side, if anybody wanted to, you know, speak to that, I think that could be a really powerful way to kind of market and tell some stories around successes.
That's fantastic. I have to at this moment say we're going to sort of close down discussion unless there's somebody that would like to put a motion on the table. I know you do, Mark, and I want to let you speak, but we are almost halfway through the meeting and not even halfway through the agenda. So I am going to have to table conversation unless something like a motion is coming to the table. But we can put this on the agenda for the next time we're together if people want to have more dialogue about this particular topic. And I do think we want to have more dialogue, even if we did make a change today. I think there's still much more to talk about.
Okay, so moving on.
And I would actually like to shake up the agenda a little bit. We do have guests in the room. So there's been a bit of conversation in the community about it's winter. It doesn't look like winter today, but it is absolutely winter. And there has been, you know, there's just been a crazy season so far. We've had some days that you really didn't feel like you were going to survive in your house. But we have lots of neighbors who are not in a place that they can be in regularly, they can be in safely, they can be in long term. So what we did 2 years ago was we actually put an investment from the Housing Opportunity Fund through the demonstration dollars into the Smithfield United Church. The Smithfield United Church renovations were completed and the church was acting as a severe weather shelter. This year, there were some changes to that emergency system. And there's been some questions raised about, well, this was a demonstration project and we made a commitment and now the church is no longer operating in that way. So we have some guests here from the Department of Human Services. We have Aaron Dalton and Abby Horn to help walk us through a little bit how that change happened, why that change happened, understanding the impact and what those dollars were able to accomplish. And please come on up so everybody can hear you.
Larry, Action Housing on.
Yes, we do have, I was about to introduce Larry. It's much easier to introduce people that are in front of you than it is in the cyberspace. Larry Swanson from Action Housing, who was part of that renovation process, is also with us. You can't see Larry anywhere on our group of folks joining us, but he should still be with us virtually. There's Larry.
I'm there. I'm here.
Larry exists outside of space and time.
That's why I call you the Cisco Kid. DHS, how do you want to do that? Do you want to begin this or where we want to go with this?
It sounds like there's sort of two different issues. One was, you know, the renovations and the impetus for that, which is a really sort of separate from then the discussions you've raised around, you know, why it then closed now, because I don't think they were connected. So
yeah, I think for the board, they're connected and not connected.
Yeah. So Larry, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'd like to. I can do it in 2 minutes. I think the background on this in early November 19. On one given day, I got a call from the pastor at the church from DHS. It was probably Abby and Mark Cherna at that time, and from Dan Gelman and Mayor Peduto. And the issue was PLI had done a walkthrough at Smithfield Church, which had been operating as a shelter for more than 25 years. And they basically said, the condition is such we can't issue permission to occupy. So that was the situation. We put together a team. We got 4 foundations, DHS, URA together. We put together a plan, and based upon that promise, the PLI issued a temporary occupancy for Smithfield Shelter. And the original work was about 400,000. It was the fire alarm system, sprinklers, and a variety of safety measures, and eventually a direct line to the water supply for the fire system. So what happened is the foundations put up about 200,000. The fund put up 200,000 from the URA, and based upon that commitment, we were able to persuade PLI to grant a temporary occupancy, and the building opened about 5 days later, right? But work was underway to make it safer. That work went on for over a year. I don't really remember when the money came in from Housing Opportunity Fund. Subsequently, we actually went out and raised another $225,000 from UPMC and Tri-State Bank to improve the bathrooms and replace the sewer line, which was also a problem. So this all started with an emergency, and the emergency at the time in 2019 is the cold weather shelter was not going to open. So the only other thing I'd add is I went back and calculated with the investment of funds that was made from the Housing Opportunity Fund. We ran that building operated for about 600 days, including year-round operation, which I believe began in November of 2022. And so it ran for 600 days. It had an average occupancy of 150. So the cost per person per night ended up being about $2.20. So I, for one, think it was an important thing for the Housing Opportunity Fund to do, and it had great value. And with that, I turn it over to DHS.
You guys have any questions about that part? That was really helpful, the costing per person per night. That's always helpful to have that perspective.
And all I would add before letting Karen is, I mean, at the time, and I'm seeing your notes from the meeting, it was absolutely seen as an emergency, and there was not a long-term plan to continue using it, which I hope had been clear to this group at the time, because that was, of course, then the next 3 years became, the whole world changed. So we ended up using it for much longer than we'd actually been intending to. So the hope had been that we are going to be opening up Second Avenue Commons, and that would take over the entire role that the Smithfield Church played as a winter shelter. Obviously, we had, 3 intervening years and got a lot more use out of it, which was, incredibly important for the community. But yeah, I'm hoping it was not presented as like a 10-year use plan, and that's what you were investing in. That hadn't been that hadn't been the intent at the time.
And those were comments from Abby Horn. I saw someone asking for names, but just a little bit of history. As Larry mentioned, the Smithfield United Church for decades was acting as a severe weather shelter in a sense of emergency that maybe our other shelters don't hit that pitch of emergency. This was the go-to place when there was no other options on the coldest, most brutal nights of the year. So I just wanted to put that sort of in perspective. It was a long-term use in the same location for a long time, being operated by a variety of human service providers to make sure that it was not only shelter, but there was also a service component. So I just wanted to put that into the mix in addition to Abby's comments.
Yeah, I would like to add that I want to give credit to the church itself, the United Church of Christ, and the passion of the minister and their members. I mean, this was their ministry for the longest time. So these were people of great spirit. I'd just like to add that. I don't want that not to be acknowledged.
And so I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Dalton, but just sort of in that context of decades of operations in that location. And Abby mentioned Second Avenue Commons, which was a project that was really dedicated to addressing homelessness in its variety of forms, really prioritizing a retooling of our thinking of moving away from shelter to longer term options, with emergency shelter being part of that. But really trying to supplant our overall need every year to have even more emergency shelter in specific conditions. You know, really a broader strategy and approach to making sure that homeless services were responsive 365 days a year in a variety of different formats. So our lives have changed a lot over the last 5 years. And I would love Aaron to speak a little bit to this year and the change from using something like the Smithfield United basement as an emergency severe weather shelter to a different strategy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I want to recognize the church as well, and the variety of service providers who supported that location for all of those years. And in particular, in the last year of operation, where we didn't expect them we didn't expect to need them. We didn't expect to have to open and operate that, but Second Avenue Commons was a bit behind, and it was, you know, November, and particularly Action Housing and Team PSBG really jumped in, worked with the church and us, and operated last winter. And I don't know what we, you know, really would have done without them at that time. So all of the providers and the church for all of those years, but particularly last year when we really needed them. And yeah, so I think it's also true that most people didn't think that was the best location for people to have to be, right? It was a church basement that had uses during the daytime, which meant people had to, you know, get up and leave. And while service providers absolutely tried their very best to make connections to services, they weren't, you know, right upstairs or right downstairs the way they might be in other shelters. And so I think the strategy was really just to make sure we maximize the shelter system that we already had, where there were kind of more 24/7 beds, where resources were available in the buildings themselves, and to decentralize a little bit. So we had 2 very large facilities then, you know, by the time we closed, Second Avenue Commons and Smithfield, not to mention some other facilities in the downtown area. And so could we also decentralize a little bit and make it a better situation for everyone? And so that's really what we sought to do. And we have, I can go into some detail if it's helpful, we have replaced the number of shelter beds that we had at Smithfield, and also worked with partners like Unity Recovery on an expansion of their drop-in center on the south side to be 24/7. So while not a shelter, that's also a place that people can be safe and get, you know, access. They can, you know, they can rest, they can get access to a shower and laundry facilities. In addition, DHS and through ourselves mostly, but and partners are running Code Blue this winter for those coldest nights of the year, where we want to make 100% sure that the system can hold anyone and everyone who we work really hard with street outreach and other partners to bring inside. So so that's sort of the strategy. And I think, I mean, happy to take comments and questions about how that has gone this winter.
And just as another point of clarification, so demonstration funds are new to the HOF. We have funded limited projects. This is a good opportunity for us to revisit the intention of those dollars, the way we follow up with those projects, the way we steward them forward, and the way we keep relationships with those projects. Even if they change and evolve over time, how do we stay connected with the intent? And also, I'm happy to have DHS here so that we can get a little better sense of trends, because we would like to always have our decisions, especially with demonstration dollars, really following what we're seeing as gaps in the community or incredible impact areas. So, you know, not just to discuss the project that we did and also DHS's response, but also just that philosophy of how do we keep these relationships how do we keep tying in, particularly the homeless system, into our conversations, and how we really frame our intention as a board. So I would love to hear thoughts, questions, comments from our membership.
I have a question. So yeah, sure. I'm Derek Tillman. So I wholeheartedly agree with the need for these funds. Just even seeing this winter, it's been brutal driving by, seeing folks every time. It kind of breaks my heart. How has the outreach been with folks? You know, I guess this current calendar year, to try to transition some of them to shelters.
I mean, we're investing a lot more in street outreach, and I think our street outreach teams are working really well together. So the primary partners, so Abby's team has a field outreach unit, and they work in close partnership with Bridge to Mountains. That's the county's primary street outreach group, and they work in really close connection with the city's primary outreach group, and that's Roots. We work really closely with Street Medicine. We're meeting with them monthly these days. And so I think that part's going really well. Whether people are willing to come inside, even on the coldest nights, even if they really face threat from flood, is a different kind of question. I mean, I think all of those people having great relationships helps, but not everyone that we offer those kinds of services to wants to, will accept them at that time.
So at the risk of getting in trouble, I'd like to add to Erin's comment. I think that the overall strategy to go to Derek is to get people off the street, but also to move them out of shelter and transitional into permanent housing. And I know that DHS is working hard to find those endpoint housing things, so that we have a system that moves people to more stability. So I think to Adrian's question, as a matter of a community effort, what do we need to do? The answer is we need to make sure there's mobility in this system. And I'm not criticizing anybody who doesn't want to move on. And since Adrian and I worked together at Wood Street for a long time, we know what that is. But we still want to create a path so that we can move people to stability for those who are ready to go there, right?
Yeah, and we'd be happy to participate with the board and share kind of a longer arc strategy that we have for the system, highlighting some of the major problems we see, including the one that you mentioned about, people staying outside and really not having that housing offer. And so while we can offer shelter, housing is a different thing. And so, if that's something that the board would welcome, we're happy to kind of share maybe not today. I mean, we've got it today. It's I just get the.
But I think it would be great. I mean, Erin presented last week a very, sort of aggressive forward-thinking strategy around increasing affordable housing for the county. And we'd love to come back. I'm volunteering Erin to
When we do it later in the agenda on the retreat planning, I want to actually, I was just waiting for somebody to give me the wink. I would like to, as part of our retreat in March, I would like to invite our DHS partners to talk to us a little bit about some exciting things they're doing and how we could really amplify impact with collaboration.
Great.
Also offer, if you're hearing things or if you have questions through Adrian or through staff, I mean, feel free to just ask us for solid information. If you feel like you're seeing something and you don't like it, we're at least happy to answer as we understand the issues. And so just let us know in the future.
Well, if we don't have additional questions, please feel free to stay at the table. We are going to move on to some project conversations. We do hope this is not the last time we see these faces and that we do have a lot of great opportunity for collaboration forward. So thank you. And thank you for also setting the tempo for us to remind ourselves and revisit the demo dollars not only how we're using them, but what those outcomes are, what that intention is, and what that impact could be. Thank you so much. All right, we're getting into the meat and potatoes of funding. We do have some projects on our voting agenda today. So I see we have Kelly who's joined us. So that means we have even more great voices and thinkers at the table. We would love to hear about Homewood redevelopment.
Oh,
Please state your name.
sure. So good afternoon, board members and members of the public. My name is Ben Payton. I am the manager of the residential and lending department at the URA. I'm here today requesting that the advisory board make a recommendation to enter into a $500,000 rental gap program loan agreement with Homewood Redevelopment LLC, who is a wholly owned entity of the Pennsylvania Affordable Housing Corporation, for the Homewood redevelopment project in the South Homewood neighborhood. This is the RGP loan is a soft cash flow repayment loan that is funded with multiple sources. But the reason we're here today is because a portion of this loan is going to be funded with HOF dollars. This is a 40-year loan that carries a 0% interest rate, and we will secure all 30 units of the project and make them affordable for the next 40 years. The Homewood redevelopment project is an acquisition rehab project. The developer is purchasing 4 scattered sites properties in the South Homewood neighborhood that have fallen into severe disrepair. The acquisition will include 37 units total, but the project intends to only bring back online 30 of those units. I think we can probably go to the next slide. Thanks. The final unit mix will include 6 one-bedroom units, 21 two-bedroom units, and 3 three-bedroom units. All 30 units will be kept affordable for individuals and families at the 50% area median income level. And the intent is to market all 30 units to individuals and families who have housing choice vouchers. Currently, all 4 of the buildings are entirely empty and there are no existing tenants. The Pennsylvania Affordable Housing Corporation, PAHC, is led by Sean Taylor, who's also on the call today, and who owns Taylor Construction and Development, Inc. Mr. Taylor has been in the construction industry for 25 years and has completed previous affordable housing projects using state and federal public financing subsidies. Mr. Taylor also owns and operates Advent Management, who will act as the property manager on this project. The developer estimates total development costs to reach $6.25 million. And the capital stack for this project includes a $800,000 grants through Neighborhood Allies, which has been secured, $1.5 million in PHFA HOP multifamily grants were awarded to the project last year. And there is a proposed construction permanent loan from Dollar Bank for $1.95 million. The URA loan on this project is contingent upon the successful closing of that financing with Dollar Bank. In addition, one benefit of this project is the successful remediation and improvement of 4 buildings that are acting as severe blight in the neighborhood due to an absentee landlord and who has allowed these buildings to fall into disrepair. Blight is a major issue in Homewood, and the remediation of these 30 units and 4 buildings would go a long way in addressing this. So I know Mr. Taylor is on the call right now, and he's up against a deadline, so I will turn it over to him to say a few words, if that's okay.
Absolutely, and I'm so sorry we cut into your time.
No, absolutely. Listen, I appreciate the advisory board for taking the time to listen to the presentation. We're at a pivotal time with respect to redevelopment within our city, and Homewood is an area that is certainly no exception to that. The ability to be able to preserve affordable housing in this section of Homewood is incredible, and we're very excited to be participating in that aspect of it. You know, a lot of people talk about blight. A lot of people talk about the challenges that we face with respect to blight. Homewood is probably ground zero for that, and we are making a very concentrated effort to remediate the blight in Homewood. Currently in Homewood, there's approximately, Homewood South, there are approximately 500 blighted units of housing. This acquisition rehab strategy will allow those units to come back online and to be able to present a wonderful opportunity for redevelopment in that area. This site is located right catty corner, about a half a block away from 7800 Susquehanna. It is a stone's throw away from the busway. And so the ability to be able to revitalize this particular portion of the neighborhood is very well received by the community and certainly by those residents who, when this project was up and running, were unfortunately displaced before we had an opportunity to jump in. And so it's our goal to be able to bring those folks back to Homewood and to be able to provide decent, safe, quality, affordable housing in that neighborhood. And I want to thank the URA. I want to thank the advisory board here for giving us that opportunity to bring this to fruition.
Thanks, Sean. I do just want to highlight one other thing, which is that this $500,000 is being matched with a $1.5 million housing preservation program loan through the URA. That was approved by our real estate loan review committee earlier this week as well.
So do we have questions, comments, follow up on this project?
I just got a quick comment. Sean, thanks for taking these projects on. These buildings need a lot of work. Yeah, it's going to be a big effort, and appreciate you putting this together. Just out of curiosity, do we have any idea what Bridgeway's up to on the vacant lots next to 7800 that are nearby?
Yeah, I had a really good call with TJ about a week ago, the executive director, and it had advised me that they do finally have Allen complete site control. That was the big issue, that they could not get.
There was that one. There was the one.
Yeah. So now they do have site control, and we are partners. We are working together with them. As you know, when we redeveloped the 16 units on the corner right behind their building, we established really great relationship with them. So, the ability to be able to work with Bridgeway and to be able to solidify that area of Homewood, I think is going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
And I would just add, I've seen these properties, one of the neighborhoods I grew up in is Homewood. So I understand and agree with your comments, Sean, about really just how much this renovation and rehabilitation is needed, especially in communities like Homewood. So I just it's a project that's necessary, especially right now. So I agree with what you said.
Appreciate that, Derek. Thank you so much for your support.
Yep.
And we also have a community comment. Just a reminder to our developer partners that accessibility is always on our minds, and that's both physical accessibility, sight and vision impairment, sensory disabilities. And when you're partnering with the Housing Choice Voucher Program, you can actually get escalated rents for having that higher level of accessibility. So if there are things that can be done in this building, we would highly encourage that. And if you need any partnership related to not only how to make units accessible now, but how to build so that they can be easily retrofitted, please let us know because we do have some expertise at the table and we would love to support you in that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I will definitely reach out. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do we have additional questions or comments? Or a motion to approve the project? I think we have a slide that outlines the motion details.
Back one.
Here we go. Oh.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize for authorization to enter into a rent-gap program loan agreement with the borrower Homewood Redevelopment LLC or a related entity in an amount not to exceed $500,000 for the rehabilitation of 4 scattered site properties in the South Homewood neighborhood.
Thank you, Mark Masterson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Alan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Yeah, abstention for the record, Derek Tillman.
And any individuals who are against this particular project vote? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Congratulations. Thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see the progress on the building.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your help. Thank you very much.
Well, I gotta say, it's a pretty good day. This has felt like a really productive and great day. Just moving on through our agenda. So we have a retreat coming up. Two things that are incredibly important. If you haven't done your survey yet, you're going to get a reminder in your email. As soon as you see that, please pop in and tell us what you're thinking about priorities for the HOF, things that you see as gaps in your community, and things that you think we should be talking about in 2024. So please be on the lookout for that email. The best time to do it is as soon as you see it pop up in your feed. The other thing that I would like to share is, to date, we don't have a lot of interest in the planning committee for the retreat. And we understand everybody's incredibly busy, but we do want to make sure that anybody who's interested in the planning, we will be diligently moving forward with items we've already discussed. But if you want to be a more integral part of that planning, please reach out to me or Eric and let us know. We would love to get a date that works for everyone. If folks would really like us to just take the reins on that and plan a way, we can also do that, and we will stop asking you for dates that you might be available. So just let us know if you want to plug in. We'll make sure that you can. We'll get those dates scheduled. Anybody who also might want to volunteer that day, that would be great too. We are hoping to have some facilitated conversations. If you'd like to be part of leading small groups, you can also let us know. I see Kelly's hand is raised.
Hi, Adrian. I have a date on my calendar already for this. Was that not set in stone? Because
the retreat is March 20th.
Okay, when you said a date, I was just curious. I was like, oh,
yes, for a retreat planning session.
Got it. Thank you.
To get a date, really shortly, so that we can be, cruising along. It's March 20th. We're going to start in the morning. We're going to do our session. Then we're going to have lunch. Lunch will be catered by one of the small and diverse businesses supported by the URA. And we will be at Emerald City. But there's still time. If you want to jump into the planning, just reach out and let us know, and we'll make sure that we loop you in. And more from the URA.
I think I'll just slide down so that I can be in the frame, if you don't mind sitting next to me.
No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Eric Bernheimer from the URA, and I'm going to talk to you about the HOF January 2024 expenditures. So what we can see from this, or maybe not so easy to see, but important to note, is that all of these programs, as compared to our last report, have had more expenditures this month. So it really represents a very productive January for us. We've been putting out a lot of cash flow. In particular, the Housing Stabilization Fund has almost doubled the amount of cash flow since the last report. And the Legal Assistance Fund has gone up nearly fourfold. So a very productive time. The rental gap program also is our last report had no outflow, but now it is up and running on some new projects. And just interesting to note is the Housing Stabilization Fund program was over half of the expenditures in January. And even though the down payment closing cost assistance looks very small, that too also increased in January. Is there any questions about that? Take us to the next slide.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right. We have another agenda item. I skipped it intentionally because I wanted to leave it for last. Because I wanted us to walk away with this. I want us to have this very fresh in our minds when we leave this meeting. We have small groups that are meeting on different topics. We developed those small groups at the retreat last year. The retreat this year, we're going to revisit those groups. And one of the groups that I know we're going to want to continue is our group working on DEI. I want to take a moment for them to be able to, talk to us about what they've really been focused on and what they want us to have in mind going into the retreat and going through 2024.
So yes, this committee has been meeting the last few months. And I think it's not any news about, statistics that have affected, marginalized communities, minorities, et cetera, in the city of Pittsburgh. We really just want to be intentional with our work of making sure that we're positively advancing our city and impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion. What we want to be intentional about is that it's not just kind of a side group where we're having conversations, but that it doesn't impact, the other committees and the work that's happening, and ultimately how these funds are being spent. So I think in essence, we want to ensure that DEI is embedded in all programs and practices for the HOF and for other funds that interact and kind of working in collaboration with the funds and the programs that we're administering. And when we think about this, not just housing, not just residents, but also definitely the residents that we're serving, definitely the housing that we're supporting to renovate, build new, et cetera, but also the businesses and the organizations that are serving the residents and homeowners. So we will be coming with some recommendations, as part of the retreat, as well as beyond that, coming forth soon. But we really also just wanted to kind of leave this with all committees as you all are coming up with innovative ideas. How are we being intentional around impacting this space and not just doing the status quo, as Megan mentioned, but really looking at innovative solutions that will move the needle in ways that we may not have in the past. So I think that's kind of the main thing we want everyone to take away. And I'm not sure if there's other committees that are going to speak as well, but I'll just say this while I have the floor. Are we planning to vote on the recommendations or someone prepared to bring forth a motion, I should say, for the initial recommendation for the small landlord fund that Tyler Novak presented early in the presentation?
We absolutely can. If someone would like to bring a motion forward, we actually can do that today. If somebody would like to do that, I think especially what we heard a lot was that synergy, that folks really like the idea of that forgivable loan for engagement, for outreach, for uptake of the program, also for maximum impact. So if that motion would like to come onto the floor, we have a quorum.
Hi, this is Kelly, where I will move that we move forward with the recommendation to transition the small landlord fund into a deferred loan product.
Do we have a second for that motion?
A second.
I heard someone. Was that Dr. Spradley?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the table. We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Are there going to be any questions?
Are there questions or is there more?
Yeah, I just was wondering, I understand deferral, but it maybe goes to the piece of the repayment at the back end. So if you've got somebody that's done real estate development for years, like having a no interest deferred payment, there's going to be should be property appreciation and other things. Do we need to forgive the loan at the back end, or is it enough to defer payments and have it at 0%? Because the ability to repay after a 15-year period should be a lot greater on the property, I think. And might also give us some ability to approach that landlord again to try to preserve those as affordable. But that was the question I wanted to ask earlier. And maybe that addresses some of the money coming back into the pot longer term. But I don't know, it's a question. I'm not operating the program. Do you think it would work if it was deferred for the entire time at no interest?
Well, I think the recommendation was that at the end it would be forgiven. Versus
I understand. I'm asking,
okay.
Is that necessary?
Well, it sounded like that would make the program much more attractive, manageable, would allow landlords to make investments in other units, also do upkeep on the units that they have made those renovations on, without that cost burden. At least that's what I heard.
And just, at least from my perspective, I think it is necessary. And, you know, again, I kind of look at this as a small, you know, version of how developers are providing affordable housing. And, you know, essentially that ends up being a grant in the end. I think this is needed. You know, the public service is providing affordable housing. The margins just really aren't that large.
And I don't know that this is necessarily the goal of this. But I think a lot of small landlords, in my experience, are folks that could use a little bit of extra assistance that they're not getting in terms of, I'm not opposed to them building equity through this process in a way that we don't recoup, because we do seem to offer that to the big guys. So a mom and pop who has a couple of units, which is what this is targeted towards, I'm okay with helping them while we're helping everybody else. And so I could entertain an amendment, but that's my motion, is to defer and then forgive at the end as was previously outlined.
Is there additional dialogue, comments, questions?
You know,
remind me again what term is being recommended by staff?
It's 10 and 15 years to under 50 for under 10. And then over 50 was 15. And I think also we might, depending on what renovations they made, 15 years, they might need to go back and borrow again, depending on what it is. So we might be able to keep them in that cycle.
Yeah.
Because home repairs, they don't last like they used to.
Yeah. I'm in, just to be clear, I'm in favor of this in principle. I'm just trying to be thoughtful about the structure of it to make sure that we are preserving these with the affordability restrictions for as long as is reasonable, right? Because that's really what we're after, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think 50K in 10 years is reasonable because we give out 100,000, 200,000, and we get 15, 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just, again, my thoughts on it, but nobody has to vote with me. That's just my rationale and what I'm thinking in terms of my support and trying to move this forward.
So I'm going to go back to the motion on the floor. We do have a motion on the floor from Kelly. We have had discussion. I think it makes sense to go ahead and call for a vote. And if that vote does not pass today, we can revisit the whole conversation. So I am going to, at this time, call for a vote. All of those members in favor of Kelly's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Aye.
So aye. Dr. Spradley, Kelly, Alan, Derek.
Yeah.
Abstain.
Oh, Derek is an abstention. My apologies. Do we have other abstentions? Do we have any folks that are voting in the negative for this particular proposal?
Yes, under the guise of a no, really more wanting to serve as a table to the next meeting. I think what I heard from some other advisory boards regarding members regarding the structure and, the potential of recouping some of the expenditures at a later date, I think that merits some further exploration. And so, that is what my no vote is really carrying.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. I do believe the vote with the members that we had present, the motion does carry. That does not mean that we cannot massage the conversation in a future meeting, which we should, because I also do think that the mechanism by which these payments are not collected, and to Derek's point, how is this forgiven? Exactly when is it forgiven? What does that look like? I think those are all things that are really important for us to revisit.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So Dr. Spradley, Outreach Committee has been doing some really great work. What do all of us need to think about and do as we're leaving this meeting today, to really put forth the HOF, its work, the URA, our upcoming agendas? What does the Outreach Committee really need from us today as we move out of this building and we move into our lives, and into our workspaces tomorrow?
I think go forth and prosper feels like the right words. No, so what I think, last meeting we asked folks, if you've not already become a follower on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, to do that before leaving the meeting today. That would be helpful. One of the things that we are looking to do with our HOF board is showcase who they are, so that this will be a tool to connect with the community as they see folks from their communities serving and representing the community. So a lot of this will happen at the retreat. We'll get pictures of folks. We'll have some questionnaires and things. And I think that thinking about the questions that we have for the community, like what is that we want to know, as we are pulling together what outreach looks like. I think that if you have a question, or I've had a burning question that you'd want to hear from the community, let any of us that are on that committee know. You can let myself know. But I think as far as today, the takeaway would simply be to follow us on social media, because once we start posting some housing opportunity fund things, we want you all to like those things that we're posting to help with the algorithm behind the traction. So that would be our big ask for right now.
As always, the committees have space. If you'd like to engage, please reach out. Reach out to myself, reach out to the URA, reach out to the chair. We'd love to get you further engaged. Is there any other business that we need to discuss before adjournment? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Derek. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you actually either here or virtually on March 7th, and then we will see you again on March 20th for the retreat. So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to our next conversation.